listener production.
Hey, Bension Siebert here with your afternoon edition of The Briefing. We've all heard the term tall poppy syndrome. It's a classic stereotype of Australian culture. If someone gets too big for their boots, or we think they're getting a bit up themselves, we as Australians sometimes feel the urge to take them down a peg. Arguably, it's the cultural flip side of our collective love for the underdog. We see tall poppy syndrome in the workplace. We see it when an everyday Australian becomes super famous overnight. We even see it among family and friends. But why? Is it an exclusively Australian thing? And is it even a bad thing? On today's episode, Sacha Barbour-Gatt speaks with Dr Rumeet Billan, the author of a 2018 study called The Tallest Poppy, to find out.
Dr Rumeet Billan, thanks so much for joining us on The Briefing today. Look, to start off, can you explain to us exactly what tall poppy syndrome is?
Tall poppy syndrome occurs when you are attacked, resented, ostracized because of your success. Let's say, as an example, you received a promotion, and instead of being celebrated for that promotion, you're actually attacked or disliked or resented because of it. It's because of that success that you experience tall poppy syndrome.
I guess we hear about it quite a lot here in Australia. Is it inherently bad? Like, we refer to it in such a casual way. We go, oh, it's just a case of tall poppy syndrome. Is it really a bad thing?
The thing is, when we are just referring it to in that way, we're actually accepting the behavior when that behavior can have an impact on the individual in a not so great way. So as an example, when I did a study, an international study on tall poppy syndrome, we found that when people experienced it, it impacted their self-esteem, it impacted their stress levels, it had a negative impact on their mental health. So when we make comments like that, we may be dismissing it and dismissing what another person might be experiencing. So I do caution around that. Now, here's the thing. Someone may have received a promotion and maybe you were up for that promotion and you didn't receive it. Maybe there is a little bit of resentment, and that could be a natural human emotion towards that. It isn't bad until we act on that. So if we're now resenting or attacking the person or minimizing or diminishing their accomplishment, I think that's when we get into territory of, this is not really a good thing, or this isn't something we should be doing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, is it just a case of jealousy? But as you said, tall poppy syndrome is more a case of acting on those feelings. During your study, it was quite an extensive study. Did you find out the origins of TPS, where we first started seeing it?
Well, it's interesting because the term tall poppy syndrome was actually coined in Australia. And the metaphor of poppies, the tall poppy syndrome, the metaphor of poppies is that we expect poppies to grow together so that they are the same size. And what ends up happening is if one poppy actually grows too tall, it gets cut down so that it's the same size as all the other poppies. And that's where the metaphor comes from and why poppies are used in the term tall poppy syndrome.
Mm-hmm. It does seem to be more common in Australia. I mean, we saw it enough that we needed to give it a name. Are we seeing similar trends in other countries, or is it really a uniquely Australian thing?
I will tell you, it happens everywhere. And so we in North America, we actually don't talk about it often. And when I did this survey for the first time in 2018, I focused on the experience that women in Canada have in the workplace. And then in 2022, we did the international study. I can tell you it is happening everywhere. So it's not just unique to Australia. It's just more commonly known, I would say, in Australia as well as the UK. Here in North America, we're only starting to talk about this. But what's fascinating is so many respondents said, I didn't know this had a name. I thought I was the only one that was experiencing it. And it's like, thank you for giving it a name. And when we think about Australia specifically, there's a strong social emphasis on equality and really skepticism around people who may be more so focused on individual success versus community or team success. And it's also those cultural values of egalitarianism.
You kind of touched on it there. Aussie culture, we love a battler, we love an underdog. Why did we feel the need to coin this term for what tall poppy syndrome is?
And I think that's a great question. And my perspective would be, it really is the cultural values in Australia and that focus on egalitarianism, the equality, the community success versus individual success.
Look, your study talked about how people who mostly experience tall poppy syndrome experience it from their peers and their social circle. Why is this?
So that's such an interesting point. Our study focused on women in the workplace, but I needed to add that question, is this happening outside of the workplace? So from our respondents, half of them said, yes, it is happening outside of the workplace. And there was a follow-up question to that of, okay, who do you experience it from? And 49.9% of respondents said their friends. They were experiencing tall poppy syndrome from their friends. And then the question becomes, who are our friends? And how are we actually defining the term friends? And maybe we need to redefine that. But I mean, the other side of it is we can experience it from people that are close to us because we connect with them, we interact with them quite a bit. And perhaps they are engaging in scarcity mindset where it's, okay, well, why her and not me, or why them and not me? So that I think scarcity mindset kind of plays a role in that as well. And we talked a little bit about jealousy and envy. And when we are in those close-knit groups and we are connecting with others, when someone achieves the success, it can actually disrupt that social balance that they might have there. But to be honest, the friends or quote unquote friends that are doing this need to get over it. Like, we need to celebrate each other versus attacking each other. Like, if my friend achieves something, let's go out. Let's celebrate that. It doesn't take anything away from me. And so we need to move past that scarcity mindset.
That's so interesting. What are the traits we should look out for if we think we might be perpetrating tall poppy syndrome? Like, what should I keep an eye out for in my own behavior? And then what should I do? How do I respond to that and go, oh my God, I'm doing it? How do I respond to that, kind of, I guess, natural instinct within me?
That's such a great question. And I will tell you, in my years of focusing on tall poppy syndrome, no one has asked me that question. So I appreciate it so much. And I think the biggest thing is being aware and being intentional. So let me give you an example. Let's say someone received a new job or they got a promotion. And sometimes the language that we use, it's like, oh, congratulations. That's right. They were looking for a woman to fill the role. So now you've just minimized and downplayed the individual's qualifications. But me, I might have been like, no, I'm actually happy for them. I'm saying congratulations. It's a microaggression. And with microaggressions, sometimes your intent could be in the best place possible, but what you say, it actually doesn't translate in that way. It's actually a put down. And so we need to be very intentional and be aware of the language that we're using and how we're communicating. Or it could be the tone that you're using when you're saying congratulations, right? The tone there matters as well, and how you support someone else. So be very, very aware of the language that we use, how it might come across. Is it coming across as a microaggression? And again, your intention might be in the best place possible, but that's not what the other person might be experiencing. Yeah, you might feel jealous. You might be envious, and that's okay. You can use that to motivate yourself. Right? You can use that and say, okay, why am I feeling this way? What is it about that person's success that's triggering me? What am I going to do about it? Maybe I need to go get some more professional development, or maybe I need to look at a different career choice. Maybe I need to reflect on what's happening in my life for these feelings to be triggered and then move forward. So I would say use it. Use it to your advantage. Make sure we're celebrating each other and not putting each other down, but be aware of the language that you use and why those feelings are coming up for you.
I feel like it's hard. I mean, I have suffered jealousy. We all have it. It is a natural human emotion. It's one of those things that if we do want to kind of fight this prevalence of tall poppy syndrome, it takes self-accountability. Do you think we could ever get to a point where tall poppy syndrome is a thing of the past, or is it just so ingrained in our culture and in human nature that it's impossible?
I'm going to build on what you said because you nailed it. It's that accountability piece. And oftentimes, even in my research, and I have to disagree with this, many people say, oh, well, it starts at the top. It starts with leadership. And I get it. I don't disagree with it fully, but I encourage us and challenge us to think of it from this perspective. It's not that it starts at the top. It actually starts with every single one of us, right? Our actions, how we choose to interact with somebody else. Yes, it impacts, like when leadership, it trickles down in the organization. I get that. But it's very easy to say, oh, you know what? It starts with them, and not take that accountability. So I would say, yes, we can. We absolutely can move past it, but we need to take accountability for it. It doesn't start with leadership. It starts with every single one of us, how we choose to act, react, as well as interact. And I think if we start dismissing it as, oh yeah, that's just tall poppy syndrome, we're dismissing another person's experience. We're diminishing, we're downplaying. And I don't think that's something we actually want to do.
Yeah, you're so right. We just kind of brush it off as, particularly in Australia, it's just part of our culture. But you're right, it is diminishing someone else's success and their own feelings. And, to be part of a lovely functioning society, which I hope most people would want to be, we have to think about how our actions are impacting other people as well. Dr. Rumeet Billan, thank you so much for talking to us about this topic today. Really, really interesting.
Thank you so much for having me on the briefing.
Dr. Rumeet Billan there. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's topic. Do you think we should try and evolve away from tall poppy syndrome? Or do you reckon it's a unique part of our country's identity? To get in touch, find and follow us on Instagram, search The Briefing Podcast and send us a DM. That's all for The Briefing today. The AM team will be back in your feed tomorrow morning from 6. I'm Bension Siebert, and thanks for listening.